A man from Rocky Top makes his way all the way down to South Florida. Alex Golesh, the former Tennessee Volunteers offensive coordinator, has taken on a new job coaching the South Florida Bulls. This is the team in the American that has been trying to build up over some success in the late 2010s, but have not been able to build up over the past couple of seasons. However, entering Alex Golesh in, a phenomenal offensive mind and a lot of transfers, this is the South Florida team that could impress in 2023. So, are the Bulls going to be taking a step in the right direction under their first-year head coach, or is this going to be a season of rebuilding and learning the new system? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel, previewing and predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams this summer. Hey, that means I'm doing your favorite team, so hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. But there are more ways than that you can help me support my channel. Hey, you're doing one right now by watching the video. Might as well do more by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and anything else you are willing and able to do to help me support my channel. Again, just an unbelievable amount of support this summer. Just unreal. Thank you guys so much. Could not be happier. I'm speechless right now. Thank you guys for the support. That's what I'm trying to say. But let's talk about South Florida, shall we, in 2023. Very interesting team out of the American Athletic. How do we do things around here? Well, we go through a roster overview, and we'll look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 South Bull football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So, without further ado, let's predict South Florida for 2023. Starting out with, of course, the quarterback room. You got to start out there. Your backup from last season, and Travis Marsh is going to be gone. He had 827 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions last season. Was pretty impressive when he played under center for this South Florida team, and sadly, he is going to be leaving this program. You do return Gary Bohannon, who I believe is a former Baylor transfer, had 1,070 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on around 57% completion percentage. You would think he would be the primary starter this year, but Byron Brown, who had 50 pass attempts last season, completed 72% of those. That's 36 out of 50 passes completed for 404 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and I believe that he may be your starter entering 2023. It's definitely down to Bohannon and Brown, but I like the way, and I like what I've seen from Byron Brown. I believe that he can end up being your starter in 2023. Would it shock me if they go with Gary Bohannon? No, but personally, I'd take Byron Brown. I think he showed a lot in his limited playing time last season. I think he deserves a shot to start under center for this team. When you take a look at the running back room, you do lose a lot of talent from this room, as Brian Beatty, who was your leading rusher last year and was phenomenal for this team, 176 carries, averaged 6.7 yards per carry, had a total of 1,187 yards and 8 touchdowns last season. He is going to be gone as a phenomenal talent, and he is transferred out of the program. And then Michael Dukes and Jaron Mangum are going to be some other names that leave as well. Michael Dukes originally slated to come back and got arrested on some charges that I won't delve too deep into, as they are some pretty serious charges. So who do you come back? Who does return in the running back room, I should say? Kwan Powell and Kelly Joyner will both come back, as well as getting a transfer coming over this program. Naquan Wright is in to be what I assume to be a feature running back for this team. And he's a transfer coming over from Florida, former 4-star out of high school. In the wide receiver room, well, you do have some more transfers leaving this program, as Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn, who were your top 2 leading receivers from last year. Weaver, 718 yards, 6 touchdowns. Horn, 551 yards and 3 touchdowns. Definitely led the way by far in catches, yards. They were really good receivers, and they're going to be gone for this team, as well as Omarion Dollison, who was that 4th leading receiver last year. So your only other guy that had at least 100 receiving yards for this team last year is Sean Atkins. He does come back, had 238 yards and 3 touchdowns, but this is a very different wide receiver group for South Florida this year. You get Michael Brown-Stevens coming over. I believe he's a transfer from Minnesota, and then a lot more transfers coming in as well. Jaden Alexis, Naeem Simmons, Seth Jones, among some other names, will transfer in to give this South Florida wide receiver room a brand new look. In the tight end room, little has changed. You're going to return Gunnar Greenwald and Jason Littlejohn, but Weston Wolf has transferred in as well. That's a pretty high-profile transfer for this program. He's coming over from Maryland. It should be a big part to that tight end room. And on the offensive line, Demontre Jacobs, Demetris Harris, Brad Cecil, and Dustin Hall are all gone. You do return Donovan Jennings and Mike Lofton. Get some transfers over, most notably in R.J. Perry. Defensively, let's take a look at this Bulls team on the defensive side of the ball. When you take a look at the defensive line, Jatorian Hansford, Eddie Kelly, and Darian Grant, going to be some big names that are going to be gone off of this defensive line. Who do you return, though? Well, Jason Vaughn led the team in sacks last year, had 5 of them, and was a top 10 tackler, had 35 tackles. Tramel Logan, pretty good player as well. He's another top 10 tackler coming back. And then Rashad Cheney will be coming back to the defensive line as well. You also do get some transfers coming over. Doug Blue Eli, and then Emmanuel Hickman. He's a transfer from East Carolina, was a pretty good player for the Pirates. Should be again on the defensive front for the Bulls this season. When you look in the linebacking room, well, there is a lot that is gone out of this linebacking room, that's for sure. A triple-digit tackler from last season in Dwayne Bowles. He's going to be gone. 108 tackles, a sack, 3 pass defended, and an interception to his name last season, as well as Devon Hicks. Pretty good player there as well. He is gone. And Antonio Greer leaves the linebacking room as well. You do return DJ Gordon, who was your second leading tackler last year, 67 tackles. And then again, a lot of transfers coming in. DJ Harris, Jamie Petway, Lloyd Sumerall, and Andrew Mataafa. I know he is coming over by way of the Utah Utes. Sumerall is a former 4-star out of high school. He is coming over from Florida. And again, just a lot of other talented transfers that are coming into this linebacking room. And then when you take a look at the defensive back room, Mekhi LaPointe is going to be gone. But really, other than that, you return a lot of talent in this defensive back room. Tamarcus Simpson, Amaris Brown, Daquan Evans, Christian Williams, TJ Robinson, Jaden Curry, Will Jones, and so many more names I could have thrown up on this board for the South Florida Bulls. Again, if a lot of these transfers fit in and some of these transfers really get it going, man, South Florida's going to take some steps in the right direction this year, believe me, you. Again, as mentioned earlier, your head coach is Alex Golesh, offensive coordinator Joel Gordon, and your defensive coordinator is Todd Orlando. As we take a look at the South Florida Bulls schedule for 2023, any game at home will be underlined, and any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game in green is a game that, well, I think the Bulls are going to be able to win easily. Any game in yellow is a 50-50 game. Maybe they get upset. It's a game they're supposed to win, but I inevitably have them winning, and red is a loss, of course. I think there are a lot of tough games on this schedule. I think your non-conference play is really, really difficult. Your first game on the road here is against Western Kentucky. It's your first game of the season, and it's a game I think South Florida is going to win. Western Kentucky is going to have a very dynamic offense. They're going to be one of the best teams in the new look Conference USA this season. Definitely should be one of the favorites to win Conference USA. They've competed for conference titles in the past there at Western Kentucky, and they just have a really good roster top to bottom with all these transfers trying to find their footing with a new head coach coming in to implement his system. I believe that South Florida is going to have their struggles there in week 1, and I believe they will drop that first game to Western Kentucky. But it's all good. Week 2, I think you get a little bit of a tune-up game here against Florida A&M. Should be able to beat that one there. Again, that's a program from the ranks of the FCS. And then you got a game against Alabama here, and there's no way you're going to be able to beat the Crimson Tide, even though this game is at home. I know the Crimson Tide have some questions coming in, but I don't need to speak about this one any longer. You're not going to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's one of the premier programs in college football. They're going to be one of the best teams in the nation yet again this season. And I know some people have had their doubts about that, but man, oh man, do I like what Nick Saban and that team has in 2023. And then you get into conference play here. You get that first game in conference play against a new opponent in the American Athletic, and that is Rice. Now, Rice, going to be a very interesting team to watch this year. That's a team that's been building. They made a bowl game last season, and look, that's a team that brings JT Daniels in at quarterback. There's a lot of talent in the wide receiver room. You got your top 2 leading receivers coming back to that program. Defense, I'm worried about, but they do a good job keeping yards off the board. They just don't do a very good job of keeping points out, which is what could trip them up against South Florida, because with the system like Alex Golesh, we saw it at Tennessee last year. It can be very explosive, very fast-paced, and it can score points in a hurry. However, again, I believe that this year the South Florida Bulls are going to have some trouble really finding their groove. I think they're going to have a tough time getting going. I think some of these transfers may need a year or a little bit to really find their foothold, but this is going to be a nice building year for South Florida. I do have Rice being able to beat you there, as that's a road game for the Owls. And then on the road against Navy is going to be difficult here as well. I think Navy is going to be a pretty solid team this year. That offense has left a lot to be desired from years past, but they have a lot of returners on defense. There's a lot of experience there. I think you're going to be able to beat South Florida. I think that defense steps up and makes some plays and is going to be able to slow this Bulls team down. On the road at UAB, they also have a new head coach. Trent Dilfer is coming in, a former Super Bowl champion, and that's not a head coaching hire that I am buying quite yet. There's a lot of inexperience on that coaching staff, and they're trying to replace some key pieces on that roster. However, I think they have enough on that roster to not be at the very least competitive, and I think that they're going to be not necessarily a lot more competitive than South Florida, but I believe they are a team that is well built. I believe there are some really good foundation pieces there, and I think UAB is going to have a pretty solid season. May not make a postseason, at least that's what I'm predicting, but still a competitive season nonetheless. They're going to be able to beat South Florida, and I also do not believe that South Florida will be able to beat FAU. That's a very interesting team this season. You got a new head coach in Tom Herman, who has had wild success at a G5 ranks. Casey Thompson checks in, a former Power 5 quarterback from Texas and Nebraska, coming over to FAU. That team may lack a little bit of depth, but the first and second stringers are going to do well more than enough to get their way past South Florida. And then you got to go on the road and play UConn, and I love what Tim Mora has here. That UConn, or Jim Mora, my apologies. I love what that UConn team has this season. Taquan Roberson is coming back at quarterback. He was hurt last season. He will play this year. That's going to be a really good team. They got a lot of great returning talent, some good transfers coming in. I'm pretty high on the UConn Huskies. I think they go back to a bowl game, and I think UConn is going to be able to get that win against South Florida. And then a couple tough games coming up here. I do think you lose that game on the road to Memphis. Seth Hennigan is a phenomenal quarterback. He's got a lot of great talent around him, and while Ryan Silverfield, sure, might be a little bit of a joke around some communities there in the American Athletic, he's got some stuff to prove. I think he proves it this year. This is a very well-built Memphis team, in my opinion, and I think they get that win against South Florida. I also think you're going to end up dropping that game to Temple, a game that I still could see South Florida being able to win on account of Temple's defense and offensive line needing to get better, and I think South Florida is going to be able to exploit all of those, especially that defense. I think South Florida is going to be able to score points. Don't know why words are so hard. The only problem is I think Temple is going to be able to score points as well. EJ Warner's fantastic. He's got a lot of returning weapons on the offensive side. So what I'm kind of thinking as of right now might be a little bit of an offensive game. Maybe you're looking at both teams in the mid to high 40s or high 30s, something like that. I think Temple walks away with a win, and then you get a Friday game here against UTSA, and that's a game you're just flat out not winning. UTSA is really, really good. You got Frank Harris coming back, a lot of weapons in that wide receiver room, and some good players on defense as well. They're one of the best teams in the G5, and you're not going to beat the Roadrunners on the road. However, South Florida is going to get at least one more win this year, right? And their final game of the year comes against a team that I'm not high on at all. They also have a new head coach coming in to that program while also trying to replace a lot of pieces. Yes, a lot of transfers enter there as well, but I think it's going to take a little bit, maybe a couple more years for Charlotte to start being competitive in their new conference in the American Athletic. Not a team that I really like entering this season. So all in all, South Florida and the camp around South Florida might see this as a disappointing year at 2-10, and I kind of see it as a little bit of a disappointing year too. I don't think they quite meet expectation, which might be like 3-9, 4-8, but the expectation is for me right now to just improve, to build. And I think Alex Golesh is going to need some time with this program. But once he gets his guys in, make note, because South Florida, I think, is going to start climbing. It very well could be this year, but I see them struggling a little bit this season, falling at 2-10. Let me know your thoughts on the Bulls in the comment section below. But hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.